Good evening, Vancouver, and Happy New Year. Welcome to Canucks After Dark, January 1st, 2024. As always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing today, Clay?
Parker, Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to all of our viewers. It felt like we've been gone a long time, but we only missed one show because that was Christmas. Who's going to stream on Christmas Day, right?
Right. Yeah, you did text me. I think it's 6 p.m. on Christmas. You're like, we're not. And I was like, no, of course not.
And I'm glad that you returned the favor today, because a peek behind the curtain, like we like to be honest with you guys, we were debating whether or not to stream tonight or tomorrow night. Who's going to be around tonight? What are we doing tomorrow night? Canucks post game tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out that Parker's busy. I'm busy. So it worked out. We're here tonight, and we can be among the first to greet everyone here a happy 2024. So how was your break, Parker? Anything exciting?
Not particularly. Just, I didn't really take any time off work, so it was still just a normal week other than a few days off. But lots of going around a family, but it was a good time. But yeah.
How about this week? Working this week too?
Yep. Back at it tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I was. The reason that this whole thing happened with the date confusion, I was going to have people over to watch the Huskies game. And as I have learned, college football games aren't 3 hours like normal football games. They are 4 hours, which is silly and a waste of time. That game ended about 10 minutes ago, but I didn't have anyone over for it. So
did they win?
They did win. They're going to the Natty next week. They could win it all.
Who are they playing?
Michigan.
Who that went into overtime, right? The Michigan one.
Yes. Quinn Hughes' alma mater, Michigan, to tie it back. So we had a quick 2 minutes to discuss what we were going to talk about today, as both of us sort of rolled in last minute. But I think the plan for today, we're not going to go back and talk about the games from before Christmas. I mean, we can touch on them and look at sort of the Canucks record over that week, but. I mean, those 4 games or 3 games before Christmas, Canucks won 2 of them. They beat the Preds and the Sharks as they should. They got a point against the Stars. Great week going into Christmas. And then after Christmas is a game that maybe we can talk about, that Flyers game from Thursday. Although I will admit, I didn't watch it. So there's not a lot I can add. And it apparently wasn't the most exciting.
Right. I think that's fair. Maybe we can pull up the stats and just see if there's any. I did have it on. I was at a gathering. We at least had it on. So, but there wasn't a lot going on. But we'll do a little bit of that. But more importantly, we'll look ahead to this year and this upcoming next couple of weeks and the big road trip coming up, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing that sort of my eyes get drawn to from the last game is who, not the low minute man, but very low on the totem pole, second lowest on the team. Was Nils Höglander. And that's something that I figured we could talk about. So we'll do that. We'll talk about Nils Höglander being in the scratch position at today's practice. We'll talk about Carson Soucy warming up. I say the return of Soucy in the title and that he's back in the he's back at practice. I don't think he'll play tomorrow. And then, of course, a 7-game Eastern road trip to start the new year after tomorrow night's game at home. So a real sort of test to see, if this team can hang on to that top spot in the Pacific.
Yep. And I guess depending on how all that goes, we may have some time for some of your questions as well. So you're welcome to chat. Like always, chat with each other in the chat, and we'll highlight any donations or new members, whatever. But generally, we'll try our best to get to some of your stuff at the end of the show.
Excellent. All right, let's start with Höglander. Let's start with that 4-1 loss to the Philadelphia Flyers, which was, if I remember correctly, nothing happening for a while.
Yes,
and then the Flyers scored 3 goals in 2 minutes and 6 seconds.
Yes.
So I was sitting in the dressing room before hockey this night, and I was like, I had the game on my phone face down on the seat so I can listen to the real broadcast. Not the radio. I prefer the short house commentary. So I'm just listening to it. I'm like, nothing's happening. It's 0-0. And I walk in and then they're like, it's 3-0 Flyers. I'm like, wait, what, was my stream way behind or something? But you've got goals from Zamula, Walker, and Farabee, which is 2 of those are pretty rough to get scored on by. And the Flyers just sort of killed this game in a matter of 2 minutes.
Yeah, I can do this in 2 minutes for your Parker because I did have the second and third period on. First period, nothing happened. Both teams looked like it was the first game out of Christmas. Then you're right, Zamula, the only 2 goals he scored the season, both against the Canucks on the power play, a seeing eye shot. Okay, that's fine. Unfortunately, the Tyler Myers penalty for interference came against the flow of the play, so you're already kind of backing up a little bit. Then this Walker one, Tippett makes a really nice blind spin around pass, and it became a 3-on-2. Teddy Bluger late to get back. Then the Walker guy scores. And then the Fairby one was the killer because that one was Zadorov trying to last man back. And Parker, you'd appreciate this as a defenseman. He tried to split the 2 of the Flyers forwards right in the middle dot. And so not good.
And I'm looking at this so I'm looking at this, and the camera angle is essentially the view that Tyler Myers has of this play as you're sort of looking over. And I'm thinking, wow, I see Nikita Zadorov trying to rush up the ice. I am going to fall back just in case because we don't need all 5 guys going into the zone with speed. Instead, Tyler Myers is ahead of Zadorov by the time Zadorov gets checked. I don't know why. I don't know where he's going. He wants an outlet pass for some reason. And then obviously he can't get back in time either. So it's just like, it's just a bunch of errors from that pairing, which isn't too surprising. That's what they were billed as, but a real backbreaker.
Yeah, and then you come out of the third period and the Canucks get a quick one, like 25 seconds in. And we always talk about, Parker, how good those first minute or last minute goals are. They can be backbreakers. And then 3 minutes later, 4 minutes later, they get a power play. So you think, man, if they can somehow, even though they've been sleepwalking through this game, if they can score on the power play, then it's 3-2. And then who knows what happens the last 15 minutes. And then they give up a shorty, which is a killer anytime. But that was their first. Was that their first shorty of the year that they gave up?
I think so. And it's an ugly one too, because there's 3 Canucks back and the puck gets past Besser. Great save there. And then, but no one can get over there for the rebound. Everyone's just being lazy. It's just, and it's 10 seconds into the power play. It's right at the start. So yeah, just a mess of a game that we can pretend didn't happen. To be fair.
So you watched that? Oh, you didn't watch that game because you're playing. But then, did you come back to? Did you have your phone on the bench? Like, are you that into it, or no? You just wait till after the game and you go.
No, just check after the game. It's 4-1. Like, I'm not going to even bother watching the highlights. And this one, it's that is a go home and pretend nothing happened. And it's easy to do when they didn't play for 5 days going into that, and then they didn't play for a week after.
Yeah. You always want to end the year on a win, but still, what are we complaining about? There's still 13 games over 500. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and there's still 7 wins of the last 10, including 2 of their 3 losses being in overtime, right? Barring that Flyers one. That's a pretty good place to be. They are sitting pretty at the top of the division with 2 games in hand on Vegas. They're looking just fine.
By the way, and I know your sarcasm meter is good. If I said to you, if you saw my tweet, maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, doesn't matter. But there's a point to this. I tweeted it out after the Vegas Golden Knights lost 3-0 today. I said, oh, wouldn't it be great if the Vegas Golden Knights had to play all of their games outdoor? Obviously, intimation that they can't win. And then I had a couple of tweets saying, oh, actually, they'd probably win some of those, or that's not fair. And I'm not sure if they were trolling me back or my sarcasm is that bad.
Yeah, I've learned that most people on Twitter are not the smartest usually. So I don't know, it's just there's always just the silliest comments that I just
right.
It's easy to ignore.
But isn't it funny how Vegas has stumbled a little bit? It's nice.
Yeah, they've put themselves in a weird spot. They've only won, and same with LA, right? Both of them have won 4 of their last 10. Which is great. I mean, you have the Kraken trying to make a push, right? They're only 10 points back now. They've won 5 in a row. The Oilers have won 5 in a row again. But yeah, it's nice that the teams that the Canucks are sort of fighting with for that top spot have given up a little bit of leeway.
Yep. So, and we talk about this all the time. It's so good that the Canucks were so good so early, because even when they went through that lose one, win one, lose one, they didn't really lose much. They barely lost any ground. So maybe this is kind of what and we can talk about this. Maybe this is kind of what we should expect. Maybe not another 6 or 7 game win streak in the cards, but if we can win 2 out of every 3, or even 3 out of every 5, and just move that 13 games over 500 to 17 or 18 goes over 500 and finish with 100 points, then we're comfortably at least second in our division. And that's good.
Yeah. Especially with, this Eastern swing, right? A 7-game road trip. I mean, yeah, you win 4 of those and you're fine, right? Like it's not something that you're gonna, especially these weird games, right? The end of that road trip has the Sabres at 1 o'clock our time, and then the Blue Jackets at 10 o'clock on a Monday morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, you take 4 of those, which the way this team's looked, they shouldn't have any problem with that. Yeah, then you just keep on rolling, right? If this team
Mhm.
has a lull like they had a month ago, where they were win one, lose one, they haven't really shown themselves to have any slumps yet.
Yeah.
So that takes me to the lines from
Yeah.
today's practice, and I wanted to. So we'll run through them and we'll sort of go one by one, and we'll start at the top. Mikheyev, Pettersson, Kuzmenko. How's your Kuzmenko meter feeling at the start of 2024?
Okay, so it wasn't the boldest prediction ever, but you and I talked about here. I've talked about on my shows. We knew that Kuzmenko's demotion and benching was only temporary, and he was going to find his way back to the top line because you're not going to have, God bless him, Sam Lafferty playing in your top line forever. So I thought Kuzmenko has been fine since he's got up there. Offensively, they've been good. Defensively, that line hasn't tracked as well as you kind of want them to. But I do think I've seen enough in flashes where I think he now knows that he's been benched. He's been scratched 2 different times, like on 2 different bunches this season. I don't think he wants to do that again. And I don't think the Canucks want to do it again. So long answer. I think he's been fine. He hasn't been amazing, but he's popped a couple goals in. And I think the message got through. I think that's the more important thing right now than production. I think the message got through.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that he needs to step up, again, that line has been kind of sleepy lately, right? But the real sleepiness has been the power play, and he's, when he's been on, that power play's been doing better. So that's a pretty critical piece. Second line is where we get some. Actually, no, we're gonna go third line first. Joshua Bluger, Garland, nothing to say. They're perfect.
Don't touch
You're good. And then here's sort of the drama spot. JT Miller, Brock Besser, with Phil DiGiuseppe on the left side during today's practice.
Yeah. When I saw Hoglander take that spot about 2 or 3 weeks ago, honestly, Parker, I actually thought they were going to try and waive, or I didn't think we'd see DiGiuseppe. I wouldn't say in the lineup ever again. That's being over dramatic, but I definitely didn't think we'd see him work his way up to the second line again, for sure.
Yeah. That hot start at the beginning of the season. I mean, what does he have though? I think his stat is like 2 goals in his last 29 games or something.
That's not that good.
And keep in mind, a lot of those were near the top of the lineup, right? Playing decent minutes. And he's got 8 points in 31 games this year. He's not a top 6 player. He's not supposed to be. It worked for a little bit. But it's just not the case, right? Meanwhile, you have Nils Hoglander, who has 15 points in 34 games. Not fantastic. But 10 of those are goals, right? I mean, he's what, tied for 5th on the team in goals, tied for 4th on the team in goals with Mikheyev and Hughes at 10. 3 fewer than Pettersson, 5 fewer than JT Miller, and he doesn't play power play 1. I don't get it, really. Even if you look at Nils Hoglander, who was, second lowest in minutes last Thursday, and you look at him and say, he's not performing the way you need him to, which I think he's looked pretty good a lot of the time, and more impactful than PDG when he's on. And is he a defensive liability somewhat? Sure, but I think he adds so much more than he takes away. And taking him out of the lineup here, just to me, it just feels like you're punishing him. I don't think that helps.
So let's try and get into Rick Tocchet's head here. Parker, do you think that Phil DiGiuseppe over Nils Hoglander gives you more of a grit, chase down pucks factor on both ends of the ice? Because that's the only thing I can think of is they want to get back to that line playing a bit faster, and maybe they think that PDG is gonna get more loose pucks loose. I just said loose twice, but get more pucks loose for Besser and Miller. What do you think?
Yeah, but like when he does, it doesn't do much, right? Like, I mean, again, his points speak for themselves, right? Because he had a few at the beginning of the season. I wish I could see game by game. I don't have that in front of me, but like it. I think in the offensive zone, I don't think I think he's a negative compared to Nils Hoglander, right? I think Niels Höglander chases down pucks. I think he does well on the boards. Like there's a stretch, a week or two ago where every single board battle he was in, he seemed to win. And he spins around and he keeps guys off him, but he creates, he's a weapon out there. He creates some possibility. Phil DiGiuseppe maybe does that in the Canucks zone, right? Where he can, take pucks away, win battles, defensively. And that's nice, but that's not the job of that line, right? That Miller Besser line, they're producing, right? I mean, they've got 48 and 38 points, the two of them. Yeah. They're doing fantastic no matter who's on that left side. But I think, having Höglander in there is just more useful.
Yep. So much like we predicted that Kuzmenko's timeout lasted 2 to 3 weeks. What do you think? Do you think Höglander, he's back on that second line by the road trip, or do you think, well, hard to say, or could this be more permanent right now?
See, part of me looks at this and like, if that Flyers game was, let's say, yesterday, and then there's a 1 day of practice and they play the next night, I can see it as like, oh, we're shaking up the roster, right? We lost that game pretty bad. We didn't have much life. But there's a lot of context there, right? That gets missed. The Flyers are a decent team, right? They're a surprise like the Canucks are this year. They had 5 days between games before that and 5 days between games after that. I can see how a team might not have a lot of jump, right? Teams are looking forward to the break. Not that they should, not that it's an excuse, but there's already been a 4-day reset since that game by the time we get to tomorrow. So I think basing it off of, we need a different look based on that one game from 5 days ago. I don't, if that's the logic, which is sort of how I would picture Höglander coming out of the lineup, would be a situation like that, then I don't really get it.
Right. By the way, side note, I'm glad you mentioned the sparse number of games. We always joke, or I won't put you in my category. I always complain that every year it seems like the Canucks play the most games, and then when we count game in hands and count point percentage, we're always doing it from a standpoint of every other team has 3, 4, 5 games in hand. So how do you measure the true standings? I kind of like how everyone's played 3 or 4 times while we played 1. And at least now we're seeing equal games played. I don't know. To me, it kind of rounds out the standings a little bit more. I know that's going to change again, but at least teams are using their games in hand, and a team like LA, they're not exactly winning them all, which is nice to see.
Yeah. It's a bit of a better scenario too, because they're ahead, right? Because before it was, the Canucks, all these teams have 3 games to hands on the Canucks and they're ahead in points, right? Like how do we come back from this? But now, we can sit there and watch, Vegas go out and lose today in Seattle and be like, all right, that now that Canucks have 2 games in hand on them and still have the same amount of points, right? Canucks in one of the next 2 games, and they're, they've cemented the top of the division again. Obviously the Kings could change that as they're pushing, but it's nice to see that happening a little bit. But I mean, I'm looking at the schedule. I don't see any gaps for a while until the All-Star break, really, right? They have, they go the 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, 9th, 11, 13, 15. They have their first 2-day rest is the 15th to the 18th when they fly all the way back from Columbus at the end of that 7-game road trip. Wow. But then after that, they play every 2 nights except for one other 2-night gap before the All-Star break. Wow. So they, I don't know where the games in hand come back. I'm looking at the schedule. I don't see any gaps.
So maybe
March there's a few. Because they go the February 29th to the 3rd. That's a 2-day. And then they go March 9th to the 13th. Then the 13th to the 16th, 16th to the 19th. That week and a half right there is going to make up 2 games. And they have a couple more of those at the end of March. So the teams are going to have games in hand on the Canucks. I assume, I'm not looking at their schedules too, but the way it looks on here, they're going to have games in hand until mid-March. So the Canucks just need to keep them at arm's distance.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's fascinating how, Vegas has played 2 more than us, but Vegas has played 5 more in LA. So that means from January 2nd to April 10 or whenever the season ends, LA has to play 5 more times in Vegas. And I know one might say, well, shoot, that's 10 points, but that's also 5 more games in 4 months. So that's not easy. So I guess my word of warning to everyone out there, and we kind of said this both, is points percentage is an indicator of what's happened in the past. It doesn't mean you just automatically assume they're going to win every single game. So don't worry, Canucks fans. Like, don't think that the Kings are going to win all of their games in hand, because that's just simply not realistic.
Yeah, and you got to think like that's, comparing just the Kings to the Golden Knights here, right? That's 5 games in about 100 days that they have to make up, right? So every 3 weeks or so, they got to fit another game in there somewhere. And that's where those back-to-backs come in, right? And those are tougher to win. The Canucks have gotten most of their back-to-backs out of the way, I think. I'm not sure how many more they have this season. They have one on this upcoming road trip. And then they don't have any until there's one in February. So that's 2.
Yep.
And then, they have 2 in February. So 3.
Oh.
And then none in March. 1 in April. So 4.
That's for the Kings.
4 back-to-backs. This is the Canucks. 4 back-to-backs left for the Canucks this whole year. Right. And those are the scheduled losses. So having those, not be that, they've gotten most of those out of the way at this point, which is why they have so many games played.
Hey, what do you think? So you didn't watch the game, so you can kind of be independent of this. Were you fine with the decision to start DeSmith on in the Philly game?
Yeah. He's been just as good as Demko, essentially. Like, not as good analytically. If you look at goals saved above expected, Demko's second in the league, behind Hellebuck. But DeSmith's been fantastic. And again, you allowed 3 goals in 2 minutes. That's usually not the goalie's fault. It's just a collapse on your part. Score more than 1 goal, and then it doesn't matter who your goalie is as much.
Exactly.
And give Demko that rest, right? Like, that's sort of a nice. He gets this whole break, and he probably came into the break knowing too, right? Like, after that game on the 23rd, he was like, all right, I have a week and a half off.
Yeah, almost. Yes, good point.
And that's got to be nice, right? Just full rest, full reset for Demko. Part of you wants to just be like, keep him in the groove, but I don't think one game in the middle, 4 days in between is going to do a big, keeping someone in the groove. I think you're still going to get some rust regardless.
That's fair. Yeah. I agree with everything you said. We're not going to blame DeSmith for that loss, and Spartan's not blaming anyone. We're thanking Spartan for the $5 donation. We haven't taken a too many men penalties since last year. We haven't done anything since last year, but I hear what you're saying. Well played. Very good. I haven't ruptured my Achilles since last year. Parker's not lost a hockey game since last year. So is that true? Yeah. We'll see tomorrow.
True. Yes, I didn't play today. Yes, we will see tomorrow. So we got
Thank
through.
You,
so we got through sort of Höglander and talking about these lines. Fourth line ends up being Oman, Suter, and Lafferty, which I'm good with. But part of me thinks like, well, could you bump Oman out, or even potentially Lafferty? I know that's a name that's been sort of, he's come back down to earth a little bit. And if you need to pull a guy out, I still think Höglander with Miller and Besser, even if you really want to get PDG in, there's other guys, but maybe it's a 1-game thing. Maybe he plays tomorrow. Who knows, right? Maybe they'd take morning skate tomorrow and it's completely different. On the defensive side, mostly the same. Hughes Hronik, Zadorov Myers, Cole Juleson, and then Carson Soucy and Mark Friedman are the extras. So Soucy's skating, which is fantastic. I think he said, you remember what his quote was? They need to get, I think he said you need to get a step back or something along those lines.
Yeah.
He said,
or explosive.
He said to Kuzma, he needs more time. He probably needed more time to get explosiveness back in his stride. And that was as of Saturday. He said that to Kuzma. So maybe it's on the road trip. I mean, it would be on the road trip. But if it's not tomorrow, maybe it's Thursday, maybe it's Saturday. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm willing to bet a Pepsi that it's this Thursday. Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah, but a big add back to the lineup. I mean, like that takes Noah Juleson, who's been good, out of the lineup, or it takes Tyler Myers out of the lineup if you want to get crazy, which I think you could. Where do you think Soucy's going back in?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with your first one. I think Juleson comes out. Julison's been fine, but he's done what he's supposed to do as a 6, basically an extra defenseman. I think you don't disrupt Myers Zadorov. You don't disrupt Hughes Hronik. You play Cole and Soucy together, and one of them's got to play on their offside. Yeah, it's kind of weird how if you take out Juleson now, you have 4 lefties and 2 righties, but Zadorov has played. I'm so confused. Is Zadorov a lefty who can play right, or is Zadorov a righty who can play left? I'm so confused with Zadorov.
Zadorov is left-handed.
right? Who played a bit of right in Calgary, but out of necessity. Okay, so yeah, that convinces me. Then that's right, him and Myers. So I think you put Cole and Soucy together, our two prized free agent acquisitions in the summer, and you move one of them to the right. I just don't know who that's going to be. Part of me says it should be Cole.
Yeah, I think that would be fine.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting question here is what do you do with ice time, right? Because if you look at the sort of dispersion of ice time between Tyler Myers and Zadorov and Ian Cole, I'm just looking at the Philly game, the last game. Myers and Zadorov just played about 19 minutes. Cole played 18 and a half. So they essentially all played the same amount, right?
Yeah.
And then Noah Juleson was at 13. So in my opinion, the reason Ian Cole's not playing more is because he's paired up with
I agree
with Juleson. So does that become your second pair when he's back? And then you go Zadorov Myers getting down to maybe 15, 16 minutes a night?
It does for me, Parker. And I know special teams, both the power play, i.e. Hughes, especially in Hronik, or penalty kill, i.e. no Hughes. Obviously that skews the numbers, but to me, I see it like, a 23, 24 minutes, 22, 23 for Hughes and Rowan, 19 to 20 for Cole and Soucy, and then the last 15 to 17 for Zadorov and Myers. And I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah. It's an expensive third pair.
Good point. Very tall, expensive third pair.
It was a big third pair. And they're guys that I think will thrive more in limited minutes, at least based on what we've seen so far. But yeah, it'll be good to have him back at the very least.
Oh yeah. He wasn't outstanding, but he was good. He was very good before he got hurt. Yeah. It was kind of, you didn't really notice him in a good way. Like he came as advertised.
Very stable.
I thought he was great. Yep.
Excellent. So that's the Soucy part covered. And then really, I think all we want to do was sort of preview the road trip coming up, and then we can go to the people
Sounds good.
about 15, 20 minutes or so, because we haven't done that in a while. Let's take a look. I will pull up the schedule coming up because for some reason I closed it. So tomorrow's game is, I guess, the first one we'll preview, not a road game, but the Senators are in town. 7 o'clock start. The Senators have been not great. Obviously, they fired their coach. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They're sitting very lonely at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, 6 points behind the Sabres, although 6 games in hand.
There we go again.
4 points behind the Blue Jackets, again, 6 games in hand. I don't know, they've only played 32 games this year, but they haven't been good this season. 14 and 18. They have gotten no overtime points, so that is a true 14 and 18. A game that the Canucks should be pretty handy favorites in, I would assume.
Yeah, Ottawa stinks. And it's crazy. They have so much good player. Well, they got no goaltending, but they have so many neat and intriguing offensive, like young offensive stars. I know not all of them have been playing all year, but yeah, you're right. This man, like actually Philly is way better than I think a lot of people expect, and they're a good disciplined team. But yeah, you can't lose to Ottawa at home with 4 or 5 days in between games before you go off to an important road trip where you're fighting for the top of the division. It all lines up to the Canucks got to win, and I'm not gonna say, it's typical Canucks if they lose this one. No, they got to win. They have to win this one.
Yeah, they're not at that point anymore where it's like, these are the teams they can steal a game from. It's like, no, this is the take care of business game, right?
Yep.
You're at home. You're going on a big road trip where it's going to be a lot tougher to get some points. The Sens are just stumbling everywhere. Yeah, you got to take care of that one.
I agree. And then I know we're going to go game by game, but this road trip by teams, it's not that tough. It's
correct.
Yeah.
So again, the travel's the hard part of this trip, right?
Right.
And the weird game times. So they fly out. First game is Thursday on this road trip. St. Louis, who are not particularly good. They're 18, 17, and 1. So basically right at 500, minus 13 goal differential. So they've been struggling in the Central. The Canucks are 12 points ahead of them, right? Plus 56 in goal differential in comparison, right? Like the Canucks are a much better team. You're on the road. It's going to be tougher, but that should be a game the Canucks win.
Yep. Yep. St. Louis also. Is it only no Edmonton? Of course, Edmonton, Ottawa, and St. Louis are the three. Has anyone else fired their coach this year?
I think there's been 4, but I don't remember who.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Obviously, the Brew. Yeah. I just love it when we light up Binnington. I don't know. There's
Yes.
something about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this team we should be. I love it. I love it, Parker. That we actually sit here and 70% of the time we say this is a team we should beat, but this is a team we should beat.
Yeah. So the next 2 games are teams the Canucks should beat. It gets a little trickier though. They then get the Devils, who they did struggle against. They lost that 6-5 game to the Devils back on December 5th. The Devils, I mean, you look at like, oh, they're 6th in the Metro. Doesn't tell the whole story, right? They're 19-14-2. You know, they're 5 games above 500. They're a team that, they're on pace for like 90 points. They're not terrible. But again, the Canucks are a better team currently than them, at least the way that they're playing. The Devils have been a bit of a disappointment, essentially just middling. I'm going to say that's the closest to a 50-50 on this road trip.
Oh, it's true. You're right. And the Devils won that barn burner of a game here. You're right, 6-5. But isn't it crazy, Parker? If you're not 5 games over 500 in that Metro division, you're in last. Like that's a tough division.
Yeah,
that's a tough division. But that's for whatever reason, Quinn Hughes cannot beat not only Jack, but I guess Luke now too. So I would just love it if the Canucks. But for some reason, I don't know, Parker. This one feels weird to me. It just seems like this is one where. Gosh, you said 50-50. I'm going to say I think it's even more slanted in New Jersey. We just can't win there. We can't win here. We can't beat them. It's weird.
Yeah, New Jersey's always been one of those weirdly tough teams.
Yeah.
They then go to New York for a back-to-back.
Oh,
which will be tough, right? I mean, obviously the Rangers are, top of the table right now, 51 points, 25-9-1. 9 regulation losses. I mean, the Canucks only have 10. It's just such a weird thing to think about. But they've been efficient. I mean, a plus 26 goal differential, but they're a plus 16 in the win column, 16 games above 500. Won 7 of the last 10. They're cruising. They took care of the Lightning easily 2 nights ago on Saturday, 5-1. They beat the Caps 5-1 earlier the week. The Rangers are dangerous. That's obviously the hardest game of the trip.
Yeah, no weaknesses in their team. Like they're obviously quick and Shesterkin, so good, like basically as good as Demko. Yep. And then your defense is Fox, Miller, Schneider, Trouba, who scares the heck out of everyone. And then they got Panarin's this is a good team. There's a good team with no weaknesses. Them and Boston so far proven to be the cream of the Eastern crop.
Yeah, it's always Boston, hey? They're always just there. So that's the games that you will not see us until those happen.
That's one way of putting it.
That's a terrible way of putting it. But that takes us through next Monday. That's a 4 p.m. start, so should be no issues with us going at our normal 10 p.m. next Monday.
Correct.
Unless the Huskies game takes 6 hours, which hopefully it won't. Canucks on a back-to-back. We'll just touch on the next 4, even though it's obviously the following week, but just sort of the whole road trip as a whole. They got the Islanders, a team that, good old Bo Horvat, they're 4th in the Metro, kind of middling again. 9 overtime losses for the Islanders already this season, which has really kept them in it. Like they've only won 17 games, but they have 43 points thanks to that. They have the Penguins on the 11th, and then they have the weird Saturday 1 p.m. against the Sabres, and then Monday 10 a.m. January 15th, which is very silly for us as normal people with jobs. So that'll be one that'll be a bit of a tough watch.
Yes. Another peek behind the curtain for all you guys. Parker and I and Sam all work full-time. Kai is a full-time student. So we don't think we have a host for Game Over Vancouver that day, but we got 2 weeks to figure that out.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to sort. We do have a big orange line across the spreadsheet on that day. So we'll figure it out. So this road trip as a whole, 7 games.
Yep.
Where do you think the Canucks end up on the entire road trip? And then we'll do our next week.
4-2-1.
4-2 on the road trip.
Yeah, I'm giving them losses any 3 of those middle games. New Jersey, Rangers, Islanders, Pittsburgh. and then they should be able to beat St. Louis, Buffalo, Columbus, and then one of those 4 that I just mentioned. So I'm going 4, 2, and 1.
I like that. I'm gonna go 5-2.
I like it. Yeah.
I think that Rangers game is a write-off, and they probably lose to the Sabres for some reason. But they find ways to take out the other teams. I'm being optimistic, but I think it would be a good run because they've been in a good run as of late.
Yeah. If they beat New Jersey, I'll be so happy. That's awesome.
Me too.
That's awesome.
And then for this week, 4 games: Sens, Blues, Devils, Rangers.
Well, if I have to follow the same way of thinking, I'll have to go.
You don't
2,
have
1,
to.
1.
You could just go completely different, so you're right on one of your guesses.
Okay, fine. 0-4. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. They should beat Ottawa. They will beat Ottawa. They should beat St. Louis. They will beat St. Louis. They're going to lose outright to the Rangers, and they're going to lose in overtime to the Devils or shootout. So I'm going 2, 1, and 1.
And I'll go 3-1 because that sort of goes with what I said.
Yep.
But 2, 1, and 1 again, I'd be okay with, as long as they beat the Blues.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Everyone in the chat, give us your predictions for both. If your predictions add up to 4 games, you're talking about the next 4 before our next show. And if your predictions add up to 7 games, then you're predicting the road trip. And your predictions add up to 8 games, then I guess you threw the Ottawa one in there. But let us know how you guys think the Canucks are going to do over the next week or 2. We'd love to see what you guys think for sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, if either of us are right, that's a pretty nice road trip, right? So you're saying in the next 8 games, the Canucks will go 5, 2, and 1.
Correct.
I'm saying that they'll go 6 and 2. So essentially the same. Which would put the Canucks at what would that be? 60 or 61 points, depending on which one you're going with.
Yeah.
At basically the halfway point, or just past, I guess it'd be 44 games. But yeah, they like that. They're so comfortable at that point that we have nothing to worry about. I want to see where the playoff odds are at right now.
Sure. While you're doing that, I want to recognize Spartan, Chris, and M. Masterton with some very optimistic records. Jack 8-0, and Fitness goes 1-7.
That's tough.
That is tough.
Canucks odds are sitting at 94% currently. Okay. They've dropped a little bit. I think that's because the Oilers have gone on their run. It's nothing to do with the Canucks.
Okay.
But I'm looking at the graph. Calgary has continued to drop. And then, the Oilers spike, and then the Kraken have had a little bit of an uptick, and that'll go up a little bit again today. After their game today. Right. And then, the Canucks are at 94. Vegas is down to 93. They dropped a little bit. The Oilers are up to 86 now, so they're looking good. And then LA is at 97. So those 4 there's a big gap, right?
The Oilers at 86% to make the playoffs?
According to the Athletics projections, yes.
And what did they give Seattle?
21%. Keep in mind, Oilers are 2 points back of Seattle with 4 games in hand, right? The Oilers have a better points percentage right now already.
Yep.
Both teams have won their last 5, but the Oilers have that, more historic success, right?
Yeah.
That the model is probably basing off of. So
I guess what stood out to me, Parker, is since you and I saw the Canucks throttle Seattle in Seattle, they've Seattle's been a little bit better. They've won 5. They've actually got points in 9 straight games. I know they made a point of saying that at the Winter Classic. So I forgot though that Edmonton went on that 8-game win streak. Then they lost a few, but they're back to winning again. So I guess that makes sense. That makes sense. The
Kraken do have an easy schedule coming up too. They have the Sens, Sabres, Caps, Blue Jackets. Those are their next 4 games. They could try to put something together. But I have no stress yet.
Me neither. Look at us, unstressed.
Lovely place to be.
Yes. Good.
All right.
Okay.
It's
good job.
10:40. We've gotten through all the topics.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, unless there's anything else.
I got one more for you. Lekkerimäki, DPD, Willander playing for Sweden.
Yep.
Canada, our country, obviously, no Canucks players. You're watching that game or you're following it. Do you care who wins in that preliminary? It wasn't round robin. Sorry, it was round robin. It wasn't knockout stage. It wasn't gold medal. It was a battle for the top of their group. Did you care who won? Were you going for one team more than the other? And don't give me the cop-out answer of as long as the Canucks prospects play well.
Yeah, no, I'm always rooting for Canada, but I didn't care that much about that game, just because I care once it gets to knockout, right? Like
Yeah.
tomorrow. Oh boy, that's the game's in 7 hours.
What time is it? 5:30 our time?
5:30. Yeah.
Great.
Set your PVR. That's what I will have the PVR running in the background tomorrow morning. But yeah, no, I care. I really don't care that much about the World Juniors until the knockout stage.
Sure.
And then, but during that time, yeah, I'm tracking obviously what the prospects are doing, right? So, and they've looked
Yep.
good. All three of them, really, like that. Like they've been really big parts of this Sweden. Have they allowed a goal?
I know up until then they hadn't. Yeah, it was 3 games, so I don't know if they've since. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that I saw it was like 0 goals against or something. I don't know if that's still the case, but they've been very good, and I'm sure that they got to be the favorite at this point, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They have 5 goals against.
Okay.
In 4 games, they're doing fine. Oh yeah, they lost that one game, but yeah, Canada's 3-1. They're looking fine. And they have, who do they have tomorrow?
Czechia.
I like their odds.
Yeah, me too. And then the final 4 will be U.S., Canada, Sweden, and whoever U.S. lost to on their side. Was it Czechia? I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know. It's confusing.
All I know is that some reporter talked to someone or read something that I know what it is. Patrick Alvin gave an interview in the Swedish newspaper, because that's where the tournament is. And they were saying that they expect DPD to join the AHL after his SHL season ends this year. They're expecting Lekkerimäki to join the Abbotsford Canucks next season, and they're expecting Villander, which we've already talked about that. We've both heard 2 years at Boston U before he joins the Canucks. So that could mean we see DPD at the end of this season, Lekkerimäki at the start of next season, of course, AHL, NHL, and then Villander at least 1 more year. So it's fine with me. Those are 3 really good prospects.
Yeah, they're all looking good. I've been liking Pettersson. He throws the body around. He's great.
Yeah, he's solid.
It's fun to watch.
Solid. Yeah, good,
excellent. All right, 15 minutes or so. Let's go to the people. I've seen some questions fire in. I should have starred them, but I didn't because I don't think ahead when I should.
Me neither. I don't think ahead or behind.
But let's see if we can grab some. And if you have questions to throw in the chat at us, now is the best time. And we'll start with Edmund. Do you find that Ian Cole has been a disappointment so far? I feel he makes a lot of turnovers. I'll go to you.
Yeah, this is a good question, because I saw you guys when Parker and I were talking about where does Soucy fit in. I know there's a bit of discussion about how good Cole has been. I really had high hopes for him. I still have high hopes for him. I do think he's been a tiny bit under expectations for me. I know maybe it's magnified because we're watching every single play, dissecting every goal against and for. But I do think he's been on the wrong side of some poor decisions. But he hasn't hurt the team over a long stretch. So I think he's been okay, but I certainly think he can play better. That's that. But I will say this with Juleson. He's actually been better with Juleson than I thought as a pairing they'd be. I think individually, though, I expected a tiny bit more.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's been fine, but he hasn't been fantastic. But I think part of that is also, he's been playing with Noah Juleson a lot, trying to be sort of cover. And Noah Juleson's gotten a lot better with Ian Cole, specifically. So maybe.
Yep. Good point.
Giving Carson Soucy back, and maybe we're rolling again.
Yeah. I like this from Peter. Would you put Bester with Petey?
No.
It's not going to happen.
Miller and Bester have been working great together. I'm not touching Brock Besser right now. He's got 24 goals. Why would you mess with that?
Yeah. By the way, everyone's because it's World Junior time and all this best on best. So I'm seeing, Parker, a lot of these projecting the 2025 or whatever it is World Cup of hockey and all. Right, the Athletics done all their mock rosters, and it's very, very interesting. Miller, Demko, and Hughes are obviously slam dunks to make the U.S. team, and Bester, it's kind of like a 50-50. Some are saying you need that goal scoring. Others are saying, well, let's see it in more than one season. Yeah. I'm just curious. What do you think Bester is going to get the love from Team USA next year when it comes to that weird World Hockey Championship?
Yeah, when is that tournament?
I thought it
Is
was
it
25.
mid-season? Yeah.
Oh, good question. Mid-season 2025, maybe? I'll look it up.
Yeah, because if that's the case, then it'll be very dependent on his start next year, right? Because I think, yeah, like, oh, he's even if he scores 50 goals this year, maybe he scores 40 or whatever.
Yeah.
That's great, but there's a track record of that not being the case, right? And you got to think, where would they be putting him on this USA team, right?
Right.
Is he a fourth liner? I don't want Brock Besser playing fourth line if I'm the US, right?
Yeah.
I would want someone who's a bit more two-way to be in that spot. So that would be my thought
Okay.
on the US side.
So it is. This World Cup of Hockey is going to be a step-up tournament. So it's 2025. They don't know when though. Then the Olympics in 26, and then they go to 28 for World Cup. So it's going to be every 2 years, technically, right? The off years, I should say, every 4 years, the off years of the Olympics.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think so though, because I don't see the spot for him.
I agree.
Because unless you're putting him, top 6 or even third line. But yeah, if you're having him on your fourth line, there's probably some guys you'd rather have in that spot.
Yeah. Fitness says Besser said he'd be lost on Olympic size ice because he's a bad skater. Well, that's very honest.
But he's a smart player though. Like I feel like he'd know where to go, but he would have the ability to just get burned.
Right.
And especially best on best, that's a lot of guys to burn you.
Sure. Jack says, "What are we going to do on the show when we win Lord Stanley?" We can speculate a little bit. I don't know.
Cry.
Man, if the Canucks win, we will do a live Canucks After Dark, meaning like in the same spot. Either I drag Parker out to Steveston or I will go visit his new digs wherever he lives now. But that's what we'll promise you is a in-person together.
And it'll be a week later after the hangover wears off.
Well, for you, maybe.
For me, yeah.
If you're the GM of the Canucks, what do you realistically bring in to round out our top 6-4 group? A lot of talk about Jake Gensel recently.
Yeah.
UFA, $6 million.
I like the player.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me because it's so hard for me to commit to this as like a championship contender, right? And it's hard for the odds makers too, right? That's the only thing that's putting me a little bit off, right? Because I'm like, okay, well, look, they were top of the NHL for a little bit. They're second or third right now, top of the West, top of the Pacific. Like this, by all metrics, this is a contending team. However, how often do we see teams in their first go, with a core, essentially, like the first time making the playoffs, go all the way, right? Usually teams get bumped out a couple of times and then sort of build up for a run. There's sort of two conflicting things. One is, what if they never are this good again? Which is scary to me. It's like, hey, just shove the chips in, let's go. But the other part of me is like, well, what if, again, it's 40 games at this point. It's not a fluke, but what if it's kind of a fluke, right? And that scares me a little bit. Jake Gensel is going to be expensive in two ways. He's going to be expensive to get, and he's going to be expensive to extend if they did want to keep him. But I like the player a lot. But yeah, I mean, odds wise, like the Athletic has the Canucks at a 3% shot of winning the cup, right? Where there's other teams with like Dallas, Boston, and Edmonton are all at 10. The Rangers are at 8. The Avs are at 8. The Jets are at 7. Like the Canucks are like 12th in Stanley Cup odds for the Athletic. And if you go to something like FanDuel, for example, they're 13th, right? It's not like the Athletic and Dom are just Canucks haters, right?
Yeah.
The odds make, like, if you think that's wrong, the Canucks are plus 2,700 to win the Stanley Cup. That's 27 to 1 odds. If you think everything else is wrong, that's free money.
Man, when I go to Vegas on that trip at the end of March, I think we have to do a bid. Why not? Right?
Yeah, right. And that's the thing, right? And I mean, if you trust the Athletics numbers, there's a lot of money to be made here because they have the Jets at 30 to 1 on FanDuel and they have them at 7% on. But either way, the Vegas doesn't believe in the Canucks yet, and Vegas usually knows what they're doing. So that scares me still a little bit. But they don't have to do it yet, right? You can wait a little bit.
Sure. Austin says, do you see the Canucks holding top spot in the Pacific, or will Vegas or LA catch us?
I think LA catches the Canucks. They've just looked so good. And I think statistically, there's 3 teams all shooting for the first spot. Odds are the Canucks don't make the first spot, right?
Yeah.
Just 2-1.
Yep.
The Athletic has it at 45% to be LA, 25%
Mm-hmm.
to be Vancouver, 19 Vegas, and the last 11 for Edmonton.
Wow.
But I mean, it would be nice to get the 1 seed, right? Because then you have
Yep.
the best, obviously the best shot at
Home ice.
moving
Yep.
on, right?
Yep.
You're playing wild card, one of the 2 wild card teams.
Yep.
But I'm happy being top 3 because the
Yep.
difference between second and third is just home ice, which is obviously important, but it's not huge.
I agree. I think we're destined to play Vegas in the first round, whether that's second, third, or third, second, whatever. But I agree with you that LA will win the division, and I don't think we're going to drop to 4. So I think, yep, I think get ready for a bubble rematch for sure.
Yeah, and that would be stressful and fun.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly stressful.
Chris asked a good question because it kind of when you're talking about Gensel, do you see the Canucks making a big trade for a playoff push? So it's funny, Parker, that you mentioned like this kind of feels weird. Maybe we're never going to be this good again. I kind of say like, what are we waiting for? There's no point saying, well, hopefully we'll be this good in this position next season. We're in this position this season. So if it's the middle of February, the end of February, and the Canucks are within 2 to 4 points of the division title, I see them. They're not going to do anything stupid. This management has shown that they're really good at making trades. Rutherford has the reputation of setting the market as opposed to following it. So to me, that says I would not be surprised if they do a major move. But I think it'll be a smart move. I really do.
Yeah, this is the most active trading management group in the league, right? Are they gonna?
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll make a big trade, but they'll make a few. Right. Even if it's a few depth pieces that they go out and add just to supplement things, they could do that.
Sure.
They might go make a splash. But yeah, I mean, hey, if you're looking at this team, you're like, wow, well, what's our first round pick going to be this year? Right. Is it going to be 25?
Right.
Right. Is it going to be in the 30s if if everything goes really well? Right.
Yeah.
What's that worth really for right now? Right. When you're talking about, this current core that you have of Elias Pettersson, of Quinn Hughes, of JT Miller, of Thatcher Demko, that first round pick at the end of this year, and I'm very averse to trading picks away usually, but yeah, this is your core. This is what you've handcuffed yourself to. You might as well throw some more chips in, right? While you're already sort of committed. Yeah, I absolutely see them doing a bunch at the deadline.
Parker, 2 questions about DPD. What are they going to call him?
I don't know. That's tough. He needs to get there first, obviously. True. Although, training camp even we'll get some confusion maybe. I don't know. I don't know how he would handle that. That would be.
Is it so bad to say Pettersson to? Oh, I guess it is. If you're not watching on TV, Pettersson to Pettersson. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe on TV it's not as big of a deal.
Right.
But yeah, it'll be tougher.
Okay, we'll get back to you. We got a couple years to worry about that for sure. Continue on the trade talk. I know people love talking about trades. Would you trade a top prospect, whether you call him top, but Podkolzin, Ratu, Lekkerimäki for a more experienced player?
Yeah, I would. It depends on Lekkerimäki, I don't think so.
Correct.
I think that's too blue chip. Ratu, I mean, I have no attachment to currently.
Yeah, we're trading every other piece of that Horvat trade. Why not?
Yeah. And Podkolzin, I mean, I like the player. I don't see where he fits anytime soon, right? Like, he seems like a great player to call up for a playoff push. Honestly, like, hey, stick him on the 4th line as sort of a black ace, but hasn't played an NHL game this year, right? He's 22. He'll be 23 at the start of next year. And he probably doesn't play a game this year, I imagine. I mean, he's 6th on the Abbotsford team in points. He's behind guys like Sheldon Dries, Linus Karlsson. Aatu Ratu's got 20 points, although he is, and he's younger, right? So that's it's tough. Podkolzin, it would have to be a really good piece for me to go on Podkolzin, but again, I think a lot of that's just sentimental value more than like what his actual current value is right now.
Sure. Two quick questions on PD combined. Thoughts on PD? There are times where he's looked off, but still putting out the points. Maybe to the degree, not to the degree like last year, but he's still producing. And then think Pedersen's cap is attached to the Blackhawks rumor, or is it just nonsense? So did you hear about this rumor?
I did. And the source of the rumor is so
Spit and Chicklets, right?
Yeah. It's Spit and Chicklets, but it was like I don't even know. It was a guest, wasn't it?
Yeah, like, it wasn't even.
And it wasn't reported by anyone else. Like Friedman didn't jump in on it. Like it's just like I just see it as stirring the pot. I mean, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up, right? No. Like what?
Guy wants to win. Yeah.
What would Chicago trade for Pedersen right now? Currently, they have nothing, right? Yeah. Unless they're trading firsts, and a couple of them, and they're going to be high. And Pedersen has always said he wants to play for a winner. What, the team finally starts winning, and now he's ready to go to the worst team in the league, or second worst, or third worst, or what do you want to call them? It doesn't make sense. And people are like, oh, he wants to play with Bedard. They're both centers. Are they going to play together? Like, oh, maybe on power play one, but what, does Pedersen want to go be a second line center now? Like it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
How about your thoughts on his play overall?
It hasn't been great.
Yeah,
but the team's doing so well that I haven't had to be concerned about it yet. And I know we're 36 games into the year. One, it probably helps the Canucks in contract negotiations, right? It makes them cheaper potentially. Mm-hmm. But also, yeah, if the team was like fighting for a playoff spot, I'd be pretty frustrated, right? I'd be like, well, you're the guy who's supposed to step up at these times and drag this team into the playoffs. And he's just not doing that right now, but he doesn't have to. Until the team as a whole faces some adversity, that's when I'll get stressed out. But honestly, he could play like this for the rest of the season, and the puck drops game one of the playoffs, and I bet he's going to be the best player on the ice because that's just who he is. I'm not going to be concerned until the postseason, really.
Right. I'll do this one, but you can jump in. What centers in the NHL do rank above EP40? Okay, so I'm going to give 6 that I in my head because I saw this and I started thinking about this. So the two Edmonton other guys, I'd say McKinnon, Matthews, Crosby, Jack Hughes, and maybe Barkov. So I'm saying that there's 6 or 7. What do you say?
Yeah, McDavid for sure, McKinnon for sure, Draisaitl for sure, Matthews for sure, Crosby. Oh, did we lose you, Clay?
Oh,
you still there?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? You disappeared.
Yeah, I just realized I haven't been using my camera all break, so the battery it's not plugged in. So I'll keep talking, but it's okay. We're within the last 3 minutes, so I'll just keep talking.
That might be the end of my list. Yeah, those 5, and then I don't know. I don't know. Jack Eichel's close. And I think Jack Hughes is close, or at least will be very soon. But I think right now, and again, if you're taking this season and his current play into account, maybe a couple more come up there too. But I think overall, that's okay.
Yep. If we say we have a top 10 center, I'm happy with that. And a top 3 defenseman and a top 3 goalie, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you going to make it back? But I just realized it's 10:59. So we can maybe take one more question I'm not even going to bother
trying to hook up a new camera. We'll just kind of ride it out.
I figured that would be a little bit excessive. Apparently Friedman said that rumor was premature. So that makes sense.
So. Yeah.
Hope says Pedersen for their number 1 2024 pick. Do you think if Chicago won the lottery to get Celebrini, you make that trade?
What number 1 pick for PD straight up?
Celebrini for PD.
I do it. Yeah. Celebrini's younger and he gets to play with his brother. I'm not sure if his brother's going to make our team eventually. Yeah, I'd do it.
Yeah, I might. He looks really good. It's a tricky one though, but yeah, I think you might. The people don't like it though. Chris says no way. Jack says he need more than that. But I think you might. I don't know. I might make that happen. I don't know if Chicago would though. And yeah, you'd have him at entry level for 3 years, right? Think of the pieces you could add around that.
Yeah, he's looked good, hasn't he? He's looked really good.
He does look good. But that is where we should wrap up, and it's just me on the screen. Unfortunately,
Sorry.
I don't have
Sorry,
any.
Matt.
I was trying to see if I had like a picture of you that I could. Oh, here we go.
Oh no,
we've got it. You're back on screen.
thank you.
So yeah, we'll wrap up there, folks. If you missed any part of the show, you can rewind back to the beginning. Make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button. And yeah, if you missed any part, you can find it on your favorite podcast platform in a matter of 15 minutes or so. Clay, any invisible parting words this evening?
Yeah, I know you guys can't see me, but you can. I think you can hear me. Yeah, this is just great. It was great to get back into the swing of things. We only missed 1 week, and yeah, if it goes without saying, if someone told me that the Canucks would be fighting for the top of the Pacific in 13 games over 500 heading into the new year at the start of the season, there's no way. There's no way. I don't think anyone would admit that they would think that. So I'm in a good mood. I hope the Canucks are in a good mood. I'll be a lot better mood if the Canucks win tomorrow, going on their road trip. But otherwise, happy to be back and looking forward to a great year for our team and for us on this channel, continuing to grow.
Excellent. All right, folks. Thank you all very much for joining. Hopefully, yeah, we have a good 2024 ahead of us. And yeah, hopefully the Canucks get some wins in the next week. We'll be back next Monday, 10 p.m., same time, same place. So like I said, make sure you're subscribed. Otherwise, have a good night.